Realizing that every villain here is just a little floating power-up icon to Joe suggests telling all the villains what's going on so they can at least run away. Goldar gets distracted by the hologram, and Jem realizes that my tongue literally just like Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Power Rangers Hyperforce session review. Emotions were pretty high for this one, as we knew that it was the beginning of the end. Hyper RPG advertised the finale of Hyperforce as a two-part story. And it was set to be a doozy, as there was a whole different table set up at Hyper RPG for the guest stars. Yes, plural. Mike Ginn, Jem, and Karen Ashley, Aisha, returned to the action, and were joined by another guest star that I'll reveal a little bit later. Though, even if you haven't seen Hyperforce, you can probably put the pieces together for the most logical guest in this situation. Also, thanks to an Amazon promotion where Twitch bits were on sale, 500 for 99 cents, Hyper RPG decided to allow the audience collectively to contribute bits towards ultras. Every 5,000 bits was one ultra. This was the only time in the entire season that the audience was able to work together cooperatively to boost the Rangers. We pick things up right where we left off last. Haha, no, I got you this time. This time we actually take a little step backwards, rewinding the action to just before the Alliance leader entered that dinner party. We see Andros, the Red Space Ranger, put on that famous cloak and prepare to enter the party. And yes, as I'm sure you've already put together, the third guest star was Christopher Kamen Lee, playing Andros. Before Andros can enter the party, however, Joe steps out of invisibility, grabs his hand, and the two of them are teleported to the time ship. The Rangers surround Andros and start quickly explaining the situation. I really don't think this was the best approach. Couldn't you have gone back a little bit earlier, contacted Andros, and explained the situation in a more calm setting? Jem and Aisha are of course there, but it turns out other NPC allies are present as well. The Hyperforce Rangers stopped off to pick up Lena Song, who you might remember by now is the SPD Green Ranger, and they also picked up Merlin. Oddly enough, having basically kidnapped Andros to explain this entire situation to him, the plan is to return Andros directly to the moon and have him do exactly what he was going to do anyway, only interfering if history says that what's happening is not supposed to be happening. After Chloe brings out burritos for everyone, they start discussing the plan, which Alpha relays through Vesper. The plan is to extract the leader from the situation without interfering with history otherwise. Alpha says that the Rangers should morph and go down to the moon with Andros, but stay on the sidelines and out of the way unless it's clear that they're needed. They check if Vesper has figured out a way to morph inside of Alpha's body yet. She has not, but hey, Alpha 55 has a chest cannon, missile fingers, and Jem adds some bombs. Everyone morphs, but it's not really clear if Lena did. They did get SPD Green Lena, right? It seems like she would be of more help. Alpha has Vesper remind everyone that just keep in mind that Jem has already been down to the moon and lined the entire area with bombs. So I guess they've been there for a little while. Joe points out that their colorful spandex is going to stand out against the moon, which is kind of dull and gray. But Alpha points out that there are Andros brand hooded cloaks in the storeroom. Marv asks Jack if he thinks they should go down with Andros right now or actually wait on the ship until they're needed. Jack relays the question to a rather annoyed Andros, who says he is going down to the moon alone and you other people can do whatever the heck you want to do. Alpha tells Vesper to tell the Rangers to stick to the plan, and she gets a little fed up with playing telephone. She activates a speaker that will allow everyone to hear Alpha, and thank goodness for it. Andros is teleported down right back where he was, and the other Rangers appear on the upper edge of a large crater that this party apparently took place in. But Vespa stays on the ship because they have their own part of the plan. something that we never actually heard discussed or mentioned directly, but the context clues are going to let me fill you in. So apparently Vespa is going to create a hologram of Marv that Marv will speak for, but Vespa will actually control. But then they think that maybe none of this will be necessary because it looks like the cavalry arrives. A fleet of Time Force ships come warping in. The Rangers at first feel relieved that they finally have some backup, and then they realize that this doesn't actually seem right, because Time Force wouldn't just show up out in the open in 1998. Marv, super intelligently, tells Vespa to do a passive scan of the ships, but not send them any direct signals. Sure enough, the ships are blocking all scans and not sending out any signals, and the Rangers quickly put together that these are the stolen Time Force ships, meaning these are actually Alliance forces. Jack suggested they use the Vengeance virus the same way they did against the Armada, but it's pointed out that the Vengeance virus is back in Vesper's old body, which is now completely non-functional. They think about using the bombs that are lining the crater, but that's not an option that they want to take away just yet. So Jem asked if he should make more, because he's Jem, so of course he can just whip up more. He pulls out his demolition kit, bolts, supers the roll, but he is going to need some time to actually put the bombs together. The Rangers wonder if the ships are just going to blast the evil dinner party and blatantly change history. Joe says that their priority is saving people above protecting the natural flow of history. Of course, I would point out that there are no actual people at this dinner party, just villains, and yes, we could get into a deeper philosophical debate about whether the Rangers would have a moral or duty obligation to protect villains from other villains. I'm just saying there are no civilians there. Joe says that he can go invisible and teleport himself, remember those are both things that he can do, onto the ships to see what's going on. But before they can execute that plan, the Rangers see a cloaked figure following the path that Andros took, and they watch the scene from the end of last week, just from above. That also gives them a different angle as the Alliance leader removes his cloak, and the identity of the Alliance leader is finally revealed. Ladies and gentlemen, the Alliance leader is actually... Thrax. It didn't really come as a big surprise to most people familiar with the franchise, and especially Hyperforce, especially since the Overdrive arc started. Obsession with the Corona Aurora, distracted by the Sentinel Knight. Heck, when we learned about the 5-stage plan of the Armada, the first step of that plan was resurrection, saying that a previously defeated villain was being resurrected as the Alliance's leader. Even in writing these Hyperforce scripts, I've had to change Thrax back to Alliance leader for the past 4 or 5 sessions now. Dark Spectre makes the appearance that we see in the very first episode of Power Rangers in Space, revealing that he has Zordon trapped in a lava tube. Marv finally accepts the greater point that Joe was actually trying to make. History has already been altered since Thrax has revealed himself to Zed and Rita, so the priority is now saving Zordon, and history's down the tubes anyway. Andros didn't necessarily know that Dark Spectre had Zordon. It's a little unclear in the original show if he knew that at the time or not, and in this, the Hyperforce Rangers held back from revealing too much information. Learning this has Andros seeing red, and he decides to start the fight, yanking off his cloak, pulling it over Thrax's head, and going to kick him in the back. But Thrax senses his approach, grabs him, and holds him, realizing that he's a Power Ranger. Thrax turns on his vocal amplifier that he apparently has, booming out his voice to all the attendees. He holds up a red Power Ranger and says that he has come to take his place as the rightful Grand Monarch of Evil. By the way, Jem's bombs are ready, so Joe and Jack teleport down into the crater with the bombs. The Rangers now split up into 2 teams, one trying to sneak around and get to Zordon, while the other helps Andros down in the crater. Chloe wants to activate her battleizer, but Alpha reminds her that she's supposed to be on the stealthy team getting to Zordon. Jem says it's time to blow up the bombs, which of course is done by everybody yelling, "It's boom time!" And Chloe takes the opportunity of the explosions to activate her battleizer anyway. I mean, it does enhance her in every possible way. You'd have to think stealth was included in that. The crater fills with dust and ash, but Joe remembers where Thrax was last standing, striking there and hitting him, which makes him drop Andros. Merlin calls Marv and says that it's time to use that hologram. Marv calls Alpha and asks for the hologram, and Alpha says he's going to place it up on the edge of the crater and that Marv will be able to speak for it, as well as move it. Earlier on, they said that Alpha was going to be the one piloting the hologram, but this is just another symptom of RPGs not having a script. Jem gives Marv 3 bombs, which he places right where the hologram is going to be standing. The dust finally clears, so I guess it's a pretty windy day on the moon. Ah, Power Rangers. And Jack, Eddie, and Chloe have made it to Zordon. Zordon, who you might remember once called the Hyperforce Rangers for help with a mission, so he knows who they are, asks what they're doing there, and they fill him in on the Thrax situation. And by the way, that time in my script, I had to change Alliance Leader to Thrax, the other way around. Jack fills Zordon in on the whole situation and even says that they're there to either save him or kill him, depending on how the history requires the situation to go. Vesper asks Chloe to hold her communicator up to Zordon, and she asks Zordon for a new body. Jack pretty much tells her to shut up and scan the tube to see what they can do. One of the time ships, Malika accidentally called it one of the Alliance ships, kind of removing the remaining mystery on what they might be, drops 3 officers out wearing inverted white on black Time Force uniforms, and they head for Zordon. Vesper realizes that the Rangers need her help even if she's stuck in Alpha's body. She downloads Alpha to the ship, allowing him to pilot that directly, while she takes full control of Alpha's body. As she goes to leap out of the ship, she tells Alpha something. Those thoughts that she's been having about Eddie, those are just, normal human thoughts and not something you need to share with anyone, okay? Vesper flies through the air, which is not a statement that should really apply to the moon, but it does in this universe. And I guess that means those foot booster things that Alpha had on him that Vesper removed for scrap metal were replaced at some point. She targets the group targeting Zordon and blasts at them, hitting one of the soldiers and sending him flying off into space. But I mean, Lost Galaxy showed us that even space has breathable air, so I'm sure they can just go pick that guy up later. Eddie asks Chloe to create a super cold whirlwind. I wasn't aware that she could control the temperature of it, intending to freeze the lava in the lava tube and at least buy them some time. Zordon asks them what they're doing, really worried that they're going to change history. Eddie explains that they can't let Dark Spectre kill Zordon. If his death was to come about by some other means, that might be more acceptable. They got a little bit shaky on where the lava actually was, as Malika says that cooling the top layer of the lava created a rock path up to Zordon. Except, the lava was inside the tube. Jack seemed to understand this as he tried to crack the tube below that cooled layer of lava so the rest of it would just drain out. But Malika still seemed to be confused, and again, this is not a criticism. RPGs like these can be incredibly hectic, especially when you add extra players like this session did. So she says that Jack just landed on this rock path and realizes it's collapsing under him. Chloe basically asks Jack for a fastball special, throwing her past the soldiers so she can whip around and shoot them in the back.
You'd shoot a man in the back.
Well, it's the safest way, isn't it?
One of them gets flung into the ground, and the other one freaks out, maybe realizing he could easily get flung into space, just like his friend did, so he retreats back to his ship. Eddie asks Zordon for a power boost, but Zordon says he's been understandably weakened by all this, and besides, the Hyperforce Rangers already have all the power they need. Zordon then winks at Eddie, and his trident shimmers. Let's back things up a bit and check on Team Guest, shall we? Joe frees Andros from Thrax, but then Goldar spots them and especially recognizes Aisha. He says he'll defeat them all in the name of his Empress. Then he spots Jem, a Gold Ranger, and says, "Hey, I'm the Gold One!" the two take each other on, with Goldar knocking Jem down. Aisha asks Goldar if he wants to boogie with the bear. Okay, yes, she didn't actually have the bear when she first met the Hyperforce Rangers, but A, they could have picked her up a year later, for whatever reason they would do that, and B, you have to assume it was her spirit animal all the time anyway, right? Besides, what's the alternative? Giddy up with the griffin? She means this literally, firing off an impressive set of dance moves. Goldar is entranced, so Andros summons his Galaxy Glider and blasts Goldar in the back.
You'd shoot a man in the back.
Well, it's the safest way, isn't it?
Joe moves to attack Goldar, but then Marv calls and says he needs his help with the hologram plan, so he just goes over and wakes Jem up instead. Dark Spectre notices movement near Zordon as Zed and Rita take this entire scene in. Their son, from the future, might take the Grand Throne. But then again, he might not. This is something they need to play very carefully. Joe gives Marv his shield again. Not really sure why he needs it to pilot a hologram. Maybe just extra power to do so. Or maybe the hologram is directly replicating what Marv looks like, in which case the hologram would get the shield as well. Anyway, Merlin spotlights the hologram to draw more attention to it. Marv takes control of it and starts taunting Thrax. He calls for the sword Excelsior, so Merlin plays along and creates an image of it for the hologram to hold. I mean, it's not Excalibur or anything, but I guess it'll do. Thrax is all sorts of fed up now. He takes the energy from 5 Quantrons, and then takes Elgar's power as well. Very, very little was lost on that one. Lena points out that he had already drained the entire royal house of gadgetry, an event so awesome that it had to happen off-screen. And that's saying something for a tabletop RPG. Realizing that every villain there is just a little floating power-up icon to Thrax, Joe suggests at least telling the villains what's going on so they can run away and stop powering him up. Goldar is distracted by the hologram, and Jem realizes this would be a great time to finish him off. However, Andros is distracted looking around for Astronema, who seems to have quietly slipped into the shadows, something she's pretty good at. Jem and Aisha get him back on task, grabbing onto the sides of his Galaxy Glider and attacking Goldar like pincers before Andros swings his Spiral Saber, knocking Goldar down. He's not exploded, but he's definitely out of the fight for now. Chloe and Vesper are approached by Dark Spectre, asking if they are responsible for all of this chaos. Eddie walks up and makes a very interesting point to the mega villain. His plans are actually vital for the proper flow of history, so he needs to do what he was going to do and take out this interloper. Dark Spectre, of course, doesn't trust Rangers, but it's clear that Thrax is an interloper, so yeah, he's going down. He fires slashing beams at Thrax, who is able to fend them off, but is still more interested in the Marvogram. Marv makes the image of the sword disappear, saying that he's absorbed its power, and even more than that, come and get me, neener, neener, neener. Rita and Zed encourage Thrax to get that Ranger. Thrax throws a power punch at Marv, who moves his hands as if creating a portal, and Vesper plays into it, making it look like a portal appears that takes the power punch and sends it right back out the other side. Dark Spectre and Marv laugh at Thrax, goading him. Rita and Zed say that he needs to absorb Dark Spectre's energy. Marv says first he should absorb Rita and Zed's energy. Thrax decides to go for the greater power source, which does make sense if you think about it, firing an energy beam at Dark Spectre. Joe and Marv want to teleport behind Thrax to attack him while he's distracted, but Merlin points out that this beam struggle is making Thrax very unstable. So Marv decides to use his fire powers to give Dark Spectre, who seems to be fire or at least lava based, a boost. Seeing this, Thrax screams "No!" and fires power punches at Dark Spectre, destroying him. Yeah, there goes history right down the toilet, swirling around just like that. Thrax apparently did absorb Dark Spectre's energy anyway, because he's now hovering in the air and just chanting, "Power. Power. Power." Malika announces that a new battle sequence has started, but this time, no popcorn initiative. Each of the Rangers are going to get a turn, just going in order. That really gave this the feeling of a final boss fight. Zordon once again asks the Rangers what they're doing. Shut up! Zordon, I know that you're really concerned about the proper flow of history here, but you are basically powerless in this situation. Please just shut up and let the Rangers do their thing. Jack says that the goal is to allow Zordon to determine his own destiny. However, the bad guys don't really like this idea. Or at the very least, one of them was playing a giant cosmic claw machine as a large claw drops from the sky and grabs Zordon's tube, dragging it away. The Rangers all jump for the tube, however none of them can fly, so they don't get there. Except that one of them can fly, so Chloe fires off a whirlwind and gets herself boosted up to the tube. Marv keeps Thrax distracted, clapping the hologram's hands and having the bombs underneath him go off. It works, and Thrax advances on the hologram. Merlin once again reminds Marv that Thrax is unstable. The real Marv fires his spears, again a thing I guess he can just do that wasn't a function of his original weapon, with Joe using his whip to change the direction of the spears so they look like they're coming from the hologram. As a matter of fact, all 10 heroes, all 9 Rangers and Merlin, so I guess even Chloe from up on the tube, attack Thrax at once. Thrax shields himself at first, but then says that he'll just absorb this power, now shaking and clearly growing more and more unstable. Rita encourages her son to grow to defeat the Rangers. He turns to his parents and agrees, but the distraction allows Andros to blast him in the back with the quad blaster. Thrax falls to his knees and explodes. Rita and Zed hide. Divatox was already hiding, but she decides to remain hiding. Astronema was still nearby, but decides that now would be a good time to take her leave. However, there's a bigger issue at hand here. Thrax's explosion releases a huge wave of energy, bathing the villains in it. Rita and Zed stand up and realize they feel even stronger. Yes, the explosion released something that we'll call a T-wave that makes evil stronger. Zed realizes that they should take this time to regroup and figure out how much stronger they are and what their new plan should be, and they teleport away. Oh, right, Zordon, Chloe clinging to the tube. The officers in that ship lean out of a hatch and start shooting at her. She clings on at first, but they manage to hit her and she starts falling away, with Zordon telling her that she's done her best, now she needs to go help the rest of her team. But she says she's not done yet and calls in her Phoenix Sword to fire at the tube to try to separate it from the ship. However, she misjudges her approach and accidentally pushes Zordon's tube into the ship. Whoops!
Look what you did.
Divatox, Finster, Astronema, who I guess didn't leave, she really needs to make up her mind, and some grunts realize that they feel stronger than they ever have and decide to stay and attack the Rangers. Divatox picks out Aisha, saying it's her fault that Elgar was killed, because... So anyway, Divatox attacks Aisha, who just grabs her foot and starts slinging her around the battlefield. Awesome! Astronema sees Jem and Andros and randomly, since she has no known history with him at this point in time, attacks Andros, knocking him back. Jem wants to call his Falcon Zord to go after Zordon, but Merlin says that they need to stay on the moon and fight these villains. The Hyperforce Rangers should be the ones that go after Zordon. Joe tries to teleport to one of the enemy ships to place a tracker on it, but ends up getting somehow just deflected over to the Hyperforce ship. The other Rangers teleport back as well, and Eddie calls the guests, thanking them for their help. Vesper fires off the bombs that Jem gave her, having changed them into glitter bombs. Thank you, helpful NPC allies. Bulk Skull! The time ships all take off in different directions, and at first they're not sure which one of them has Zordon. But then Chloe hears that mysterious voice again. Join us. Come with us. And suddenly she has a crystal clear instinct as to where Zordon is. Marv now knows he can trust that instinct, so he has them follow it. Merlin calls the Rangers and tells them that they'll take care of things on the moon, the Rangers should go, and then when everything is done, Merlin can just use his magic to get everybody back to where they're supposed to be. The Rangers thank them again and leave. Except for a little bit of setup and a little bit of wrap-up, this session was basically one gigantic fight scene. There's a little bit of an anticlimax to the Thrax reveal since most of us had already figured that out, and the fact that he's destroyed so quickly after that reveal. But overall, it was just a fun giant fight that mixed overall Power Rangers nostalgia and the look back at Hyperforce's own time travel shenanigans. Dinner for Evil gets a 5 out of 5. Next time, we reach the end of the story. 25 years of Power Rangers, 25 sessions of Power Rangers Hyperforce. The Rangers find themselves chasing after Zordon, buoyed by Chloe's sudden instincts. Can they save him? Why is she hearing these voices? Next time on the finale of Power Rangers Hyperforce. That's going to do it for another Power Rangers Hyperforce session review. Thank you all so much, as always, for watching. In the comments below, let me know what you thought about this session. Did you realize that the Alliance leader was Thrax, or was it a surprise? If you realized it, when? Let me know down in the comments. Let me know what you thought of this session. Let me know what you thought of my review of it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to see all of my videos, and ring that bell, get your notifications set up, so you are notified of whenever I post brand new videos, just like these Power Rangers Hyperforce session reviews. There's only one left. And if you are really happy with the work that I do and you'd like to toss me a little financial support, head over to digitaltipjar.com/orangerangervid, toss some tip change in that jar, and I'd be grateful for anything that lands inside. One more, friends. Until then, may the power protect you, and go Hyperforce. Hyper RPG advertised the finale of Hyperforce as a 2-part story finale, and yeah, they sure did, didn't they? Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Power Rangers Hyperforce session review. Boo. But Alpha says there are Andros oh god. Meaning the Hyperforce Rangers, not her and Goldar. Anyway, they could be, yeah. Extra power, maybe? Or if the hologram is directly replicating. He fires slashing beams at Thrax, who's able to fend them off, and is actually still more interested in the Marv. Marv makes the hologram absorb, supposedly, Excelsior, the image disappears. Yeah, that worked out. Divatox, Finster, Astronema, and some grunts. Oh wait,